News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte, and Nicole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.
Oh, yeah. Good morning, everybody. That's right. It's Thursday, September 29th. Today is Urban National Wildlife Refuge Day. Now, I'm confused as to what we have National Wildlife Refuge and Urban National Wildlife Refuge, if what they're talking about is like possums and raccoons and stuff, but nonetheless. World Heart Day, National VFW Day. Shout out to the veterans out there. And National Coffee Day. Thank you for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to us on all social media platforms, especially YouTube. We're live every Monday through Friday on YouTube and audio only on Clubhouse. And if you are on Clubhouse, you can also participate in the show by raising your hand if you have a brief comment on the story most recently presented. But coming up first today, we have the dope dad himself. That's right, Rico Lamitte. When he's playing with babies, changing diapers, and making pasta shells, you can also find him doing the same thing for grown-ass adults at TEDx conventions. Hey. That's right. All the little babies in the TEDx convention all get their diapers changed by Rico Lamitte.
The babies.
Oh, yeah, that's right. But at the same time, too, what he really likes to do above all things is keep himself in shape when he's practicing his football drills from his collegiate athlete days when he's constantly backpedaling on Safe Banking and Safe Banking Plus. Coming up next, it is none other than the dope dad himself, Rico Lamitte.
Yeah. Thank you for yet another amazing intro, Jason. You know, I've been told I have the strongest calves in the game from all this backpedaling that I love to do. So,
fair.
Thank you, everybody, for coming back and watching, listening, and getting high at 9 with us yet again. It's Throwback Bucket Hat Thursday, and my headline today is from the Washington Post by Ellen McCarthy. Marijuana's last taboo. Parents who get stoned. Being the dopest dad on planet Earth is awesome, but it ain't easy. We had our pandemic princess April 8th, 2020, at the height of the first lockdown. We were given a 40% best chance of getting a hospital bed. Fathers weren't allowed to stay for more than 4 hours after birth. I got 5 sisters, 3 of them with kids on the East Coast. My wife's mother and sister are both registered nurses an hour and a half away in Santa Barbara. None of them were allowed to travel to assist because the whole country was on lockdown. Rather than risk the odds of getting to bed, we dropped $5,000 we could not afford on a birthing center to reduce risk of a shitty first parental experience. 20 hours into labor, Zora was sunny side up and wasn't coming out naturally. We ended up having to take an ambulance to Hollywood Presbyterian, and by the grace of God, they just finished maternity ward construction, and we were given the VIP treatment as the first guests, allowing us to stay for 3 days worry-free. It was still one of the lowest places I've ever been in life, out of work, middle of a pandemic, no family anywhere near, and now responsible for a human life. I pretended to be strong up in the room with Jasmine and our newborn pandemic princess, but I would sneak out to the parking lot for smoke breaks and just cry, not knowing what the fuck was next. And after posting on social media celebration of the new baby, I immediately got flooded with calls of support from the place I'd never even expected, my OGs. Brothers I used to trap with that had kids. They offered me the best tips, support, and just the kindest words that I've heard from any human being in years. And it's the reason why I started my own Dope Dads podcast with my good friends. Jared Masters is also in the industry, and Salvador Santana, Carlos Santana's son. Both of them are in the music industry and also in the cannabis. And we wanted to create a safe space for those above and underground to reduce the stigma tied to fathers in the game and talk about our experiences, however extreme or mundane. That's why this story today means so much to me, because it follows 4 parents who consume and talks about their experiences too. The first is Susie from Colorado. She's 28, a recreational weekend smoker who stopped immediately upon finding out she was pregnant with the first child. After giving birth, she fell into postpartum depression, but worried about doctors that might detect it in her baby's bloodstream and take the child away if she consumed. After the newborn 6-week checkup, she took a hit, knowing that she would not be nursing for a while, and immediately felt her shoulders release tension as they've been holding for over a month. I'm not proud of what I did that day, she said, like nearly every other parent interviewed for the story. But I'm not sure I would have survived if I hadn't done that. She now consumes cannabis most days and believes it makes her a better, calmer parent, though she still hides it from most of her peers, and closest friends and family are the only ones to know. She's mostly worried about it jeopardizing her fiance's custody of his firstborn. James Kahn, 43-year-old rabbi working in the industry, he writes articles and hosts lectures on cannabis and says he's the go-to guy for any friend of a friend who's trying to figure out which product might be right for them. Naturally, he's very open about his relationship with the plant, but when he first meets fellow parents, still he feels awkward. When I'm talking about cannabis, and it feels like a confession instead of a conversation. He worries that he could be perceived negatively, and it could cost his children their friendships with kids whose parents disapprove and blame. And he actually blames the effectiveness of the war on drugs as a Gen Xer who came up in the era of Just Say No. So he's regularly been invited to talk about synagogues and senior centers. It sees normalization of cannabis as part of his rabbinical mission. He never gets invites to speak at parenting groups. I wonder why. Katie's 31, and she doesn't consider cannabis as a drug, but a plant with the ability to make her a more patient parent. She and her husband moved from Indiana to Colorado in 2014 to be in a place where weed is legal, and they didn't have to regularly break the law. Per the article, when her older child started pre-K at a Christian school, she tried to draw out more like-minded parents in subtle ways. If I catch a whiff of somebody at the park who's been smoking, I'll be like, smells good, she said. Socioeconomic issues and mainstream stressors from the pandemic made Katie and her husband move back to Indiana this summer, and she misses Colorado's culture of acceptance. She and her husband still get high, but now hide what they do and don't trust the community's response. Finally, another anonymous mom in the article is a 35-year-old with 2 kids working as an emergency medical technician, and says the stigma she feels as a woman of color makes it hard for her to be open about cannabis use. If I take a black person to the hospital and they say they smoke marijuana, that's all the doctors focus on. They don't hear all the symptoms. She fears she would be viewed the same way if white people found out she consumes cannabis, no matter that she does so legally out of eyeshot of her children, and that it calms her without the heaviness of Xanax or the hangovers of alcohol. If you're a black man, if you're a black mom, it just makes you a bad parent. As a black parent, I must be substance abusing, or I can't take care of my child and smoke. On a federal level, cannabis consumption can be used as grounds for eviction and termination of employment. For a parent, it can spark CPS investigations and show up as a red flag in the medical chart of a pregnant woman who tests positive for cannabis, especially among non-white parents. No matter how the statute might say, smoking marijuana while you're a parent is not a right, says Richard Wexler, Executive Director of the National Coalition for Child Protection Reform. It's a privilege reserved exclusively for white middle class, and because of the same class bias and racism that pervades every other aspect of our society. Hopefully more parents coming out and telling their stories of triumph and tragedy, along with further medical and scientific research revelations pushing laws away from draconian consequences for us, will lead to less stigma and increased normalization. It worked out here in California with Newsom's most recent Canna parent legislation. And here's to hoping the trend spreads elsewhere. I'm Rico Lamitte, Dope is Dead on the Street for High at 9 News. Interested in hearing everybody else's thoughts on cannabis parents, and if any fellow dope dads or canna moms out there want to chip in with theirs.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a great story.
Painful.
Who was that?
What?
Yeah,
Somebody in
what
the
was it?
hospital.
I don't know.
Yeah, I just have to say, Rico, wow, what a great story to kick it off with. It just, the thing that hit me the most acutely was the shame, pervasive shame, and all the stories, and what is it worth, and what is it for, and what are we fighting, and why are people still suffering?
Right.
I mean, it really, it's sad, but stories like this are breaking the stigma, and dope dads like you are breaking the stigma. So
I appreciate it. It's we just gotta normalize this shit, and it was really really tough for me because my wife is in healthcare, right? She's the director of mental health for 27 schools between LA and San Diego, so she wasn't able to come to a lot of my events that I was throwing. We weren't able to really express how we felt about the plant, even though it saved my life, literally. Um, so and it wasn't something I wasn't able to openly talk about when I was in corporate finance either. But I'm doing my damnedest, doing my best to make sure that the good message is spread, and we can be productive as parents. We can be productive in the workplace and society, and it actually makes us better people too, I think.
Well, I think it's just crazy when you look at our society and how cannabis is so maligned, but nobody cares at all about drunk parents. I mean,
Right.
alcohol
no.
is rampant in this country. And
Oh,
that's not an issue whatsoever when it comes to child protective services. No one's coming in and saying, "Oh, you have some alcohol in your system" when you're a patient, and suggesting, "Oh, that makes you a bad parent." I mean, they have all those cute little things about mommies getting together, having their rosé, and
yeah,
watching the kids, and
Wine
it's considered
moms.
like
yeah.
a cute thing. I mean, so it's just the most ridiculous thing in the world about how cannabis has been so maligned, and we just need to break through this stigma and show people that the parents who were cannabis refugees for their kids, because all they cared about was getting them the right medicine and what they needed. Those are the good parents that we should be looking at. And I want to give a shout out to Zora, because I was also a sunny side up baby. So
Oh,
good for her.
So we do have a few people that have some comments in here from Clubhouse, and apparently we're experiencing the same audio issues as yesterday, unfortunately. So I'm going to hold them up for the mic. We're going to go to Malik, who's been on the stage the longest first. Malik, 20 seconds or less. What do you have to say on this?
I feel like it hurts. Oh wait, there's two Maliks on here.
Yeah,
My
no,
bad.
you first.
Okay, I just feel like this is a really important topic. It definitely affects women, dope moms more than dope dads. So I'll let the other Malik go though, but much love.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm gonna keep supporting the marijuana, the cannabis industry. My father's been in it for a long time. He has told us, the many different health benefits of it. Just I support the cannabis and everything connected to it. I'm starting my own, growing process and growing shop. I'm just really getting into it and just, growing. And I appreciate you all for letting me be up here. I'm just supporting, growth.
Amazing. Thank you, Malik.
much
Leah, what do you have on this topic, Leah?
Good morning, everyone. Great to see you. It's Leah. Great to see you. It's always a pleasure to hear the news, and thank y'all for what you do. This is a topic that is very, as a mom and a caregiver and a patient, we need to be protected. Women, children, we need protection. This is something that is, especially in my state where I live, there are not protections set in place in Texas. So for a mom to have this ability to have and use this medicine, and it's sacred. This is what we're here for. I am an advocate here in Texas, and I'm an advocate, a caregiver advocate, a brain cancer patient advocate, a Lyme advocate, and a plant advocate for all of this. So it's their choice of what they want to do, and this is very, very important that we have this. And I just wanted to say I raised my hand to help because I'm here for that. And thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. It's Leah. Great to see you.
Thank you, Leah.
Thank
It's great
you,
to see
Leah,
you.
so much. So much.
Great to see you, Leah.
I'm going to
Much love, and nothing but love and respect to all the canna mamas and the dope dads out there.
Amen. Amen.
Setting the bar.
Yes, shout out.
Do
Shout out
what
to
you
them.
do. Keep doing what you do. You know what I want to do? I want to challenge a wine mom to a race after they have a pint, maybe a mega pint of wine, and I will smoke a blunt. And I want to do something kind of crazy, from a media perspective, just
What are you
to
gonna do? What's the
continue to
competition?
make the point. I don't know, what should we do?
Changing
Maybe I should
diapers.
ask the audience. I mean,
Yes.
the fact
Drunk
is,
and or high, changing changing diapers.
oh my God.
Obviously, the baby can't be real. We can't do that part.
Obviously,
Not yet.
thank
But
you. We need to have like an obstacle course or something.
yes,
I
cooking
You mean
dinner.
like a stroller race, like
Yeah.
an obstacle course?
Totally.
Breast. You're not supposed to breastfeed, when you're drunk or high. But I was gonna say like pumping milk.
Pumping up, but we have cannabinoids are in breast milk, are present in breast milk,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah, and people don't want to talk about that either.
they don't
Right?
they don't want to talk about it,
Yeah.
and it's ridiculous because we're all human beings and we're all here, and we all came here the same way. None of us asked to be here, so let's
Plant
drop
is
the
in us.
bullshit.
The plant is
Yes.
in us already.
Yes. Yes.
We got another
Keep
one,
making
Jason.
babies.
No,
Yes.
no,
Keep making babies.
I'm
Shout out
ready.
to Elon Musk and Nick Cannon doing the damn thing.
Populating the nation.
Yes.
Up next, you guys know who it is. It's the longest continuously operating retailer in the industry, better known as White Gucci in Detroit, where cats get locked up for smoking CBD under the bridge, and I don't even know if it's Delta 8. Might be Delta 8 Mile.
Never
In his
Delta
spare
8.
time, he enjoys smoking the best weed in the world, and somehow he believes the best path forward is through safe banking. Up next, Jason Beck. What you got for us today, my man?
Oh, yeah, Rico. I have a little bit of a doozy of a story, and my story was behind a paywall. So there's a lot going on in this story. But nonetheless, we're going to be talking about Iowa because Iowa Democrats want to legalize marijuana. Why they think it's a winning campaign message. More Iowa Democrats than ever before are campaigning for legalizing marijuana, citing economic opportunities and better regulation on the drug. Representative Jennifer Confrist, a leader of the Iowa House Democrats, said the issue is ready for prime time. When we legalize marijuana, it will keep Iowans safe, improve the quality of life for Iowans who are suffering from chronic illnesses, and stop our tax dollars from going to neighboring states. Conference is a Democrat from Windsor Heights and said in a news conference this month, says it's a policy that a majority of Iowans say they would support based on Des Moines Register Medicom Iowa polls. In March 21, 54% of Iowa adults said they favor legalizing cannabis for adult use. A growing number of Iowa Democrats are pushing for the Hawkeye state to legalize cannabis, saying the state can't afford to miss out on the opportunity. In addition to State House Democrats, gubernatorial candidate Deidre DeGear, U.S. Representative Cindy Axne, and U.S. Senate candidate Michael Franken have called for legal cannabis. Franken, a Democrat challenging Senator Chuck Grassley, said in the Iowa Press that it's far past time to legalize cannabis in the United States. Axne, running for re-election in Iowa's 3rd District, said during a 2020 debate that she would support adult use cannabis if a suitable plan was in place. She voted in April for a bill to decriminalize cannabis federally, but the legislation stalled in the U.S. Senate. But Republican incumbents remain vehemently opposed to recreational cannabis. Under current law in Iowa, possession of any amount of marijuana is a misdemeanor crime. A first offense could result in up to 6 months in jail or a fine up to $1,000. Selling any amount of marijuana is a felony in Iowa. Governor Kim Reynolds told the Cedar Rapids Gazette in 2019 that she will not be the governor to legalize marijuana. In a September statement, Reynolds said her stance is unchanged. I believe marijuana is a gateway drug that leads to other illegal drug use and has a negative effect on our society, she said. The Iowa governor race shows a shift towards legalization of cannabis. Iowa Democrats haven't always been on board with legalization. DeGear is the first Democratic candidate for governor in recent history to advocate for adult use cannabis. When businessman Fred Hubble ran for governor in 2018, he opposed legalization, decriminalizing, or lowering penalties for marijuana. And he says, not yet, he said in a primary debate To boos from the audience, he says, I think we need to see how it actually works in other states for a longer period of time first. A similar scene played out back in 2014 when Democratic gubernatorial candidate Jack Hatch called for a medical marijuana program but said Iowa should watch how legalization worked in Colorado before considering it. For DeGier, the wait and see period is over. She says there is one of those situations where we didn't lead on it because so many other states have come before us. But there's a great deal of lessons learned that have come from these practices all over the country, she said in a September event. Des Moines Register Mediacom Iowa polls have documented a shift in public opinion as more states have condoned adult use cannabis. A 2013 Iowa poll found just 29% of Iowa adults favored legalizing cannabis. The latest survey in 2021 saw that number almost double, with 54% in favor. Iowa Democrats are especially supportive. In 2021, 71% of Democrats said they favored legalization. Senator Jack Walz, minority leader of the Iowa Senate, pointed to unsuccessful efforts by his caucus to put marijuana legalization up for a statewide vote. He says if voters want legal cannabis in Iowa, they need to vote for Democrats this election. Walz is a Democrat from Coralville, said in a statement, Democrats aren't the only ones to call for legalizing marijuana. Libertarian gubernatorial candidate Rick Stewart advocates for legalizing most drugs, including cannabis, for over-the-counter sale at pharmacies. Stewart's first ad of the cycle, titled Dear Kim, Weed, asked Reynolds why she opposes legalization. In a quote, here I am in Illinois, why only a few families from Iowa border, and they've got legal cannabis, Stewart says in the ad. Iowa Democrats say legal weed would have economic safety benefits. Democrats argue legal pot would be a boon to Iowa's economy and would make the product safer and would align with what Iowans want. Several candidates said Iowans are traveling to other states to purchase marijuana products legally, although it's a crime to bring those products back across into Iowa. Iowans went across the border to Illinois and spent about $26 million, DeGier said, and we have nothing to show for it in this state. Illinois reported $1.5 billion in adult use marijuana sales in fiscal year 2022, resulting in nearly $450 million in tax revenue for the state. It was a 50% increase over the previous year. Conf said regulating marijuana would also make it safer for consumers. Right now, there's no control over what people are using in the state of Iowa if they get it here, and that's dangerous for Iowans, she said. In recent pitches to voters, Iowa Democrats have focused primarily on the economic impact of cannabis legalization rather than pushing it as a social justice issue. A 2020 report by the American Civil Liberties Union found that black Iowans are 7.3 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than white Iowans, despite similar rates of marijuana use. In the quote, this is unacceptable, ACLU of Iowa Executive Director Mark Stinger said in 2020. Other states are decriminalizing and legalizing marijuana, and our state needs to move toward doing the same. DeJar's campaign website argues that legalization will free up law enforcement resources for more pressing challenges affecting our communities, such as gun violence and protecting our children. We will work to remedy the harm, both past and present, caused by the criminalization of cannabis, which has disproportionately impacted marginalized groups like people of color and low socioeconomic groups, the website reads. Iowa Republicans show little movement on the issue of legalizing marijuana. Representative Steve Holt, chair of the Iowa House Judiciary Committee, has no interest in legalizing cannabis whatsoever. Holt, a Republican from Denison, raised concerns about the drug's impact on mental and physical health, as well as the cultural effects in states that have already legalized the drug. I will say what people don't seem to like to hear. When government legalizes something, it has a tendency to legitimize it, Holt said. Representative Ann Meyer, a Republican and the chair of the House Human Resources Committee, said she was surprised at the Democrats' sudden push for legalization. It was brought up in the House. I didn't hear any amendments, Meyer, a Republican from Fort Ridge, said. In fact, we didn't talk about any marijuana issues last year. Republicans hold the trifecta in Iowa's government, the governor's office, and both chambers of legislature. State party leaders remain opposed to legalizing cannabis for adult use, and so do Iowa Republicans at the federal level. Senator Grassley told reporters in August that he does not support adult use cannabis. He said he's keeping an eye on states that have legalized the drug, however. In a quote, he says, "I do not support it at this point because I've got to have proof that it doesn't lead to higher, harder drugs," he said. The National Institute of Drug Abuse reported in 2020 that some research suggests marijuana use precedes the use of other drugs and addiction, but that a majority of users do not go on to harder substances. The report suggests a person's social environment also determines what drugs they'll try and calls for more research into the issue. Meyer said she was concerned legal cannabis would be easier for young people to access, even if it was age restricted like alcohol. Both Meyer and Holt need a correlation between substance abuse and mental health issues. In a quote, they say, "We are looking to do so much to treat mental illness and substance abuse," Meyer said. "I'm certainly not going to support throwing a substance in the mix." The March 2021 poll found fewer Republican voters supporting legalizing cannabis than Democrats or independents do. Among Republicans, 31% favor legalizing pot for adult use, and about two-thirds of Republicans, 64%, oppose legalization. But Iowa Republicans say they would be willing to discuss changes to the current law. Meyer said she would support lessening some of Iowa's criminal penalties for possession if they're doing something else because of the substance. Robbery or driving under the influence, that's different, she said. But if you're using a substance, I don't think anyone should be in jail for just using a substance. Holt is open to discussions about what penalties are appropriate, but said current marijuana law is working. He does not anticipate any movement toward legalization in 2023 legislative session, which begins in January. And as Holt put it, "I don't see a societal upside in the legalization of adult use cannabis." Grassroots campaign sees an opportunity in Iowa. Brad Knott believes the movement is right to rise the profile of marijuana in Iowa political discourse. Not a political communicationist consultant, founded the Campaign for Sensible Cannabis Laws earlier this year. It just felt like it was time, Knott said. The arguments in favor of cannabis reform are overwhelming. The Campaign for Sensible Cannabis Laws launched a petition campaign, which Knott hopes will show politicians the support exits for legalization. There are about 1,300 petition signatures so far, and Knott plans to rally other advocates in October and discuss next steps ahead. Ahead of the election. Well, I'll tell you what, Iowa, you have a lot of ways to go, and if you only have 1,300 signatures on that petition, I don't see it going anywhere. But who am I to say? I'm just a Californian who smokes the best weed in the world. And this is Jason Beck reporting for the High at 9 News Hour.
Yo, Jason, this shit is crazy what's going on in Iowa right now. Are we able to play that clip from her opponent?
I mean, I don't have a clip. Do you have a clip?
Yeah, I got this clip. Watch this shit. Am I able to share my screen? Or can we do that from 3 is 4? I put the link in there.
Can you screen share this, Jesse? Casey?
Ooh, cool.
There we go. There it is. Play this. Yeah, play that Vimeo video. Turn that shit up.
Yeah.
How do we hear it, Rico?
Can you add a source at the bottom of the restream?
I wasn't doing that.
Okay.
That wasn't me.
Oh.
I can share my screen if I need to. Let's try that. I'll do that. Boom. Can y'all see it?
Yes.
Now I do. Yes, I see it. Yes, hit play and hit the volume.
Can you hear it?
Yep.
Hell, Kim, here I am in Illinois, a few miles from the Iowa border, and they've got legal cannabis. If I buy weed on this side of the bridge, I buy it from a crook. If I buy weed on that side of the bridge, I buy it from a reputable business person. Our laws today in Iowa put people into rape cages because they smoke marijuana. You're going to lose your college scholarship, you're going to lose your job, you're going to lose your kids, you're going to lose everything because in Iowa we think cannabis is a gateway drug. Well, gateway to what? How about Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, George Bush, his friend Bill Clinton, Joe Rogan used some too, I heard. It's a gateway drug to the White House? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's not a gateway to anything other than illegality. How come I can grow corn?
Iowa's dope.
Weed? They're both plants. There's a lot of weed over there. There's weed growing in the ditches. Why Why do you think you're smarter than God, Kim? If farmer wants to grow corn, let her grow corn. If farmer wants to grow weed, let him grow weed. So when's the drug war going to end in Iowa, Kim? Easy answer: the day I'm governor.
Yes.
Oh my God. I want to
Fantastic.
run. I want to go to Iowa and just hug that man.
This is
Holy
a great.
shit.
This is a great ad. I have to say, I'm impressed with this ad.
Yo,
This is a
shout
great
out.
ad.
Yes. Oh man. Yes, that was a great ad. But we're
It's no longer on my screen, is it? Right?
Yeah, no, we're all good. That was amazing. That was a great ad. But we are behind on time. We gotta go to next. She's a political strategist by day and a baker by night. A true female multitasker who can not only bake up a storm, but also knows how to make the sausage on Capitol Hill. She's the founder of Panoptic Strategies and our very own Washington Insider. Taking off the apron and coming up next is none other than the Gretchen Gailey.
Good afternoon. My headline is coming from Marijuana Moment, and the headline is New York gets 900 plus marijuana dispensary applications from people harmed by drug war. New York marijuana regulators closed the 1-month window for accepting applications for the state's first cannabis retailer licenses on Monday, and 903 businesses run by people who've been harmed by the drug war have completed and submitted their forms. For this first round of conditional adult use retail dispensary licenses, only people who have been personally impacted by cannabis criminalization or whose direct family members have marijuana convictions are eligible. The Office of Cannabis Management said that it will be selecting 150 applicants to open the first recreational marijuana shops in the state before expanding the application pool. Now that the application deadline has passed, regulators will give prospective licensees another 30 days to review and make any amendments to their documents and proposals. The office will then start scoring the applications, make decisions about approvals, and complete interagency work to get shops open as soon as possible, with the goal still being to launch by the end of this year. The timeline for retailers to launch is also contingent on the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, otherwise known as DASNY, being able to design and build turnkey storefronts for the licensees. New York regulators have been promoting the launch of the application portal for weeks, emphasizing that this represents a key step towards ensuring industry equity as the state prepares to open its adult use market. Applications for conditional retailer licenses will be judged on merits and eligibility criterion, not as first come, first served basis. Those applications are also being evaluated on a regional basis, so the initial numbers from OCM don't necessarily reflect the number of storefronts that will be opened under the program. It just shows the maximum that will be accepted per region. In order to qualify for the special retail license, applicants must have faced a conviction for a cannabis-related offense prior to the enactment of legalization in the state, or have a direct relative with such a conviction, and they must also have experience operating a qualifying business. Regulators have also expanded the definition of a qualifying justice-involved individual to include people who were arrested for marijuana but convicted for a lesser offense, which advocates view as a positive step that will broaden the applicant pool. People who receive these licenses will be able to access a $200 million social equity cannabis fund and also be eligible for turnkey storefronts that are now being secured and built out by DASNY. Additionally, regulators say that up to 25 of the licensees will go to eligible nonprofits, specifically organizations with a history of serving justice-involved individuals and creating vocational opportunities for them. Those nonprofit organizations will not be entitled to the Social Equity Cannabis Fund, and they couldn't access the state-approved turnkey facilities, so they have to operate their own compliance storefronts. There are additional conditions that nonprofit organization applicants must meet to qualify for the first round of retail licenses. For example, they must have a justice-involved individual on the board, office, governing committee, or advising committee member. They must also have at least 5 full-time employees and have been recognized as an entity under the Federal Internal Revenue Code. In anticipation of the license applications opening, the mayor of New York City recently announced the launch of a new program to promote cannabis industry equity by supporting entrepreneurs most impacted by the drug war. The Cannabis New York City initiative aims to initially help would-be dispensary operators complete the licensing application process, but is also promising to provide support beyond the license by connecting aspiring cannabis entrepreneurs to no-cost services, along with the technical assistance to support successful businesses. Meanwhile, CCB, which also approved the state's first round of recreational cannabis processor licenses last month, has encouraged eligible retailer applicants to start collecting the documentation they need to take advantage of the equity application opportunity. CCB has also approved numerous conditional cultivator applications, which are being granted to existing hemp businesses in the state. Governor Kathy Hochul signed a bill to create the conditional cultivation licenses in February. Last week, regulators additionally voted to adopt home grow rules for medical cannabis patients, as well as another round of conditional marijuana processor and cultivator business applications. The adoption of the medical cannabis home grow resolution comes about a year after draft regulations were first proposed and several months after the board accepted revised rules following a public comment period. Now, CCB has directed the OCM to formally send the approved regulations to the New York State Department of State. With respect to retailers, OCM Executive Director Chris Alexander said in July that the office diligently reviewed and responded to public comments on the proposed rules for conditional retailers, but there's still some frustration among stakeholders who feel that input was not thoughtfully incorporated. For what it's worth, a poll from most New Yorker voters are against the proposal to prioritize retail licenses for justice-involved people. I'm wondering what others think of this, if they think that 900 is about the right number, or were they expecting a lot more folks to have been applying for this? We've heard from OCM before that they hope to get something in place. Last I heard, they were hoping to get one license up and going by the end of the year, and thought that DASNY would have one of those storefronts operational so they could do that. But we've heard that it still could probably be about 6 months before we see other license holders. What do folks think? Is New York doing a good job? Are they getting done what they promised?
I think this is going to be a fucking disaster.
100% is going to be a disaster. Well, first of all, it's going to take them about 6 months to go through those 900 applications and score them properly, so that way they don't have any legal liability and lawsuits because when they choose winners and losers,
they're not going to have any at-large like licenses out there till 2024. That's my prediction. This is going to be an absolute shit show. It's going to be worse than LA was.
Invest in food trucks.
Yeah. The trap is going to win for at least 2 more years in New York.
Well, we'll see. I've had some conversations recently with Tremaine Wright, who is adamant these licenses are happening. You will see one by the end of the year and a couple more in the new year. He's very confident that they are going to get some of this up and running. I hope that
if you do the outright open retail license, they're going to be, like as Jason said, in full vertical ready. The big box stores, they're the ones that are going to be operating on the retail side. None of the people that are trying to get their licenses like this,
these are the folks who are going to be these are the licenses that are coming out first, Rico. They're not looking at the big box boys yet.
They're not going to be able to operate. Like,
you don't think they're going to get this up and running, even if
DASNY's ready? They don't have the infrastructure in place.
New York doesn't even have the infrastructure and the power grid to subdue all of these cultivations and everything. So how they're going to do that is just beyond me.
I don't know. I have maybe I'm way too optimistic, but I have a little more faith that they're going to get at least one of these done. I think it's going to come about. I think it'll be interesting.
Call it a victory if they get one of them done.
I mean, it's something. Jesus, I mean why not? Who said that they were going to get?
Jason, remember out here?
We'll get one done. One done to some political appointee who's nothing more than a poster child.
If anything, they'll put out a few provisional licenses like they did out here in California. It will be another 2 years before people get real licenses, and they're going to still be open to getting raided. They're still going to be getting beat down by the trap. They're going to have trap shops right next to them. Like how it happened in here, Jason, they were actually raiding the legal shops and leaving the trap shops open.
It's like crazy. Well, the thing is out here is DCC only has oversight on licensed facilities, so therefore they go and tax the legal operators instead of actually going after the illicit operators because they don't have jurisdiction there.
Well, all right. Question for all you Californians who hate regulated markets.
Sure.
It's gonna be LA part 2.
Did they have all these other provisions in place that New York is pushing, like a huge fund for housing to help get people
No,
an actual
no,
place to
absolutely
operate
not.
their businesses? I mean,
Absolutely not. Nothing,
why does
nothing
that
like
not
that at
give you
all
a little
whatsoever.
more hope that New York might actually get
First
their
of
shit
all,
together?
because it's New York, and second of all, because it's ran by Democrats. So I have zero hope.
They're gonna run into some kind of snafu. Like if they have these cookie cutter dispensaries or shops that are built by the state, like they've never done this shit before. They're gonna run into snags. That is just part of the course. Like if you're trying to build something from scratch, you're gonna run into hurdles. They're not necessarily roadblocks, but they're hurdles. And if you can't clear one of them, you're fucked. It's gonna push
Right.
all this stuff back month to month to month, and before you know it, it's already 2024, and they're in a totally different market, and the trap has won.
Well, and I can't believe I'm the one who's being optimistic about this.
I'm
But
shocked. I'm shocked about this too, Gretchen, and I want to keep on talking about this, but we need to go to a
I
commercial
got one
real
more
quick.
one more
Go
final
for it.
statement
Go
here,
for it,
Jason
girl.
Beck,
Go for it. Of
is
course.
that I don't know. I believe that they can possibly get this done. We've seen such of a shit show in the past. New York has been able to see the shit shows. So I'm hopeful that looking at the other states and how they have failed in trying to implement these types of programs, I'm optimistic that these pot loving libs up in New York can get this done and have something to show for their hard work for the past years. I'm optimistic.
You are far
East
more
Coasters
optimistic
are
than
much smarter
myself.
than West Coasters. They'll make it happen.
Maybe if you come out to California and smoke some of the best weed in the world, Gretchen, you'll see things a little clearer.
I've been to California. I've smoked junk. It's
You
fine,
have,
whatever.
yeah.
Besides, all that
I
California
bet.
shit's over here anyway. I ain't
bet.
got to fly out there.
My weed is not over there unless I'm over there. But nonetheless, we're gonna go to a quick commercial real quick. Welcome to Los Ashes, the headiest city in America. Los Ashes is a 10-pound smokable city curated and created by the world-renowned Roller Weavers. In the past, Weavers has amazed cannabis lovers with his roll jobs, such as a smokable 5-pound rocket launcher and a 10-pound Darth Vader. But now Weavers is rolling an entire city and have your business featured in Los Ashes with a ton of different sponsorship opportunities available. Contact Weavers at smokablecity.com for full sponsorship information. The thoughts and opinions and shade thrown on High and Nine News is those of the individual speakers and not those of any other speaker or its followers. The statements made do not constitute legal or accounting advice, and our speakers make no legal representation regarding the legal status of any substance in any county, area, or territory, or any authorities. The views expressed in this room do not establish any fiduciary relationship. Our sponsors do not imply or constitute any endorsements by us or the expression of any opinion whatsoever on the part of any speaker on stage. If you are easily offended person, this show is probably not for you. Flying into LAX and you want to taste some of the best weed in the world? Then stop by LAXCC, the closest dispensary to LAX, located at 8332 Lincoln Boulevard and open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. Always make LAXCC your first stop when you touch down in LA and score like a winner. And don't forget to tell them I sent you and mention you'd like to get High at 9 for 10% off your full order.
Oh, yeah. Up next, he's a Wisconsin-rooted, Fresno-based raptivist repping the strong, black, conservative voice mainstream media and Joe Biden do not want you to know exists. But I'll tell y'all what, the haters and race baiters will not block out the black side of liberty perpetually exposed by the man who may or may not be responsible for last year's recall election. Coming to the stage, it's the cannabis industry's favorite thorn in Gavin Newsom's side, my man, Nicholas Wildstar. What you got for us today, my brother?
Who may or may not be responsible for last year's recall election. Coming to the stage is the cannabis industry's favorite thorn in Gavin Newsom's side, my man, Nicholas Wildstar. What you got for us today, my man?
Nicholas, you need to unmute. There we go.
All right.
Go ahead, Nick.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
All right, cool. Just wanted to make sure that you guys can hear me.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Nick, you with us?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right. I don't know why the sound keeps coming out in and out like that, but hopefully you can hear me.
Cannabis reform has grown in popularity with voters, activists, and state legislators. Cannabis is now legal for medical use in 38 states and D.C. and for adult use in 19 states and D.C. Despite those advances in state-level reform and another broader conversation nationwide, Congress has failed to pass a major piece of legislation addressing the issue, and many voters and activists wonder why. One argument is that federal-level officials in the executive branch and in Congress simply don't care enough about the issue to address it. To consider this question, the author included a coding about cannabis reform in the Brookings Primary Project in 2022. The Brookings Primaries Project examines the publicly stated views via the websites and social media presence of all candidates running in U.S. congressional primary races. We coded each candidate on a 4-point scale, whether they supported legalization or decriminalization of cannabis, whether they supported medical legalization only, whether their position was complex or indecipherable, and whether they failed to mention the issue at all. The results provide 3 general takeaways. First, primary candidates for Congress do not consider the issue important enough to elevate to be included on their website or on social media. Second, on average, candidates who do engage on the issue are at least not harmed by staking out a public position. Third, stark differences exist between Democratic primary candidates for Congress and Republican primary candidates for Congress. These findings generally reflect a reality that bears out in public opinion polling. While cannabis reform is popular among Americans with 68% support in the latest Gallup poll, it is not a salient issue among voters. Polling shows that cannabis reform has never jumped into even the top 20 most important issues for voters. That support, but lack of salience, has a compelling impact on members of Congress and congressional candidates. It gives them the freedom not to engage the issue. Overall, we coded 2,360 candidates running in Democratic and Republican primaries for Congress. As Table 1 shows, the vast majority of candidates, which is 81.4%, made no mention of cannabis reform at all on their websites and social media. In fact, clashing against the idea that the popularity of cannabis reform should be pushing legislators to make clear statements of support for reform. 86.4% of candidates either made no mention, staked out an unclear position, or explicitly opposed cannabis reform. To read the full story and see all the visual graphics, be sure to click that article link and check it out. Reporting for the High at 9 News Hour, this is Nick Wildstar, a.k.a. The Governor. Speak now or forever hold your peace, and I'm out.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for that, Nick. I'm wondering, Rika, what do you think? I'm wondering, since Liz Grow is next and she has a similar story, if we should just move to her and move the comments because there's similar articles, or do you want to? What's that?
Yeah, and just combine the comments.
Exactly. We're going to combine the comments for both stories.
Yeah, let's do that. So hold on with us, Nick, and anybody with your comments on Nick's story, because we're going to combine these two stories because they are similar.
They are.
Liz?
Yeah. Hi, you guys. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here and talk about this issue. Yeah, it's just this research that's come out from the Brookings Institute is pretty depressing and sobering, and I think a lot of media networks or media sources are picking it up. And ultimately, it's that congressional candidates are staying silent on cannabis policy because it just doesn't seem to be as pressing of an issue for their voter base, like, period. And as a Texan, reading this research really hit home for me. So, I did want to just pull out a few quotes from this article that I read this morning from NORML. And this is from NORML's Deputy Director, Paul Armentano. He said, voters' views on the subject of legalizing regulated cannabis have evolved significantly over past decades. However, the views of those seeking to represent them in Congress have not kept the pace with the seismic shifts in public opinion. Candidates' failure to advocate for marijuana policy reform is a missed opportunity, as this is unique. It's a unique issue that unites all voters, irrespective of party. And I thought that was just a really, obviously it's common sense comment, but, you would think it was common sense, but, congressional candidates are remaining silent on this issue. I think, as we just heard, they're not talking about it on their websites. They're just not trying to touch it. And it's really sad, because as a voter, we are the ones who put them in office. We're the ones who sign their checks, essentially. And if they're not representing us, if over 90% of the American population polled stated that they support medical marijuana, why aren't our candidates following suit? It's really, it's just, it's really sad. So rather than rereading an article, I just wanted to, comment on that and hear what everyone else has to say. How do we get our congressional candidates talking about this issue? How can we get them to take it more seriously?
You need to get a lot of old people to die for them to take this seriously. I mean, if you look at while you were talking,
We're not
Liz,
ageist, so everybody
I'm
at
not an
home.
ageist, but this is a generational issue. And frankly, so many of these lawmakers are older folks who don't care about cannabis.
Are you a supporter of the purge?
Sure, why not? If I was just recently, while Liz was going through hers, I looked up, just for kicks, polls for issues that are closest to voters' hearts come this midterm election. And a recent poll by Pew that was done last month says number 1 is inflation. Number 2, abortion, healthcare, January 6th, immigration, guns, crime. I mean, cannabis is nowhere near this. And it's just, frankly, that's what people care about. It's what is hitting their bottom line. And I think frankly, I did not expect abortion to be an issue that I'd be voting on this election. But now it is. It is a major issue that I care about for this election, thanks to the good old Supreme Court. So I think there are a number of other pressing issues before cannabis when it comes to just general voters. And frankly, people care way too much about what their constituents think, and not nearly enough people are reaching out to their lawmakers caring about cannabis for it to be an issue that resonates.
100%.
One thing you always implore people do is write.
Mhm.
Actually write to these lawmakers and get them out those old handwritten notes that really gets them going. So I want to make sure we reiterate that as much as possible out here. Like, write letters to your lawmakers, make sure this is in their face. Maybe we even need to go out more as cannabis consumers and showing these people how chill we are. We're not all up in arms and fighting each other out in the streets and shit. We're watching your dumbasses do it. Why? Because we're better people right now.
Well, just like, I feel like if anything else, maybe if I get a well-written email, if I get a personal handwritten note, that's kind of special, cool. If I get a well-written email, great. If I meet somebody in person and I see them and I share space with them, and we're able to share ideas. I remember
Share your
them.
experiences,
I
right?
remember, yes, what they're about. And that's really what it is, what you said, Rico. We've got to get out on the streets. We have to be politically involved at
Visible.
a local level
Yeah,
to change hearts and minds and to, get these candidates to know, like, yeah, okay, great. We're not old now. There are a lot of more old people who are interested in other issues, but they are dying. They aren't using cannabis. They don't believe it's a medicine. So that's okay. We're going to live to be 110. All right. I believe that our generations are going to live just a little bit longer. We know more. We've got science on our side, as long as we don't kill each other with all the guns. This is from a Texan. I think that we need to get our politicians thinking long term, and we can only do that and only get them to take us seriously if we are there in person, and they can see that we're real people.
And to Liz's point, not everyone has to come to Washington, D.C. While I would love for people to storm the Capitol and actually go to their lawmakers' offices.
Did you get that on tape?
Yeah.
I know that is not always possible. So people need to remember that their congressional members have district offices. They have multiple district offices. Many of them have 5 or 6 district offices. So roll down the street to your local district office. You probably have one closer to you than you think.
Yes.
And go talk to the staffers that are there. For all those folks who think that Congress members are all jerking off on the weekends and doing nothing, they go home to their districts. Mondays and Fridays, you will find your member in your district office. Go look for them. Hunt them down.
Hey,
Be
Gretchen,
persistent.
yes.
Yes. Say it louder.
Girl.
Well, I think
Hold on, real quick. I just
Go ahead.
want to give a quick shout out to Anna and Elliot Lewis, because they actually did that. They went out there as cannabis entrepreneurs, went out there and challenged the fucking system and are fighting for licenses that people don't even know about. Like, get out there, be active, and make sure the people in your community or in the community you want to do business at, make sure they know the benefits of cannabis being legalized, the access for medicine, and then other people aren't stealing your fucking money. Period. And I mean that in a as an analogy, right? You know, like Los Angeles is not the second biggest city in the U.S. Los Angeles is 88 cities smashed together. So a lot of people don't understand, like, not all of L.A. and not all of the cities in L.A. are legalized. There's a lot that you can't get there. And that's what makes it so hard to operate. I know Jason can attest to this as a retail owner in the greater Los Angeles area. Like, West Hollywood is not Los Angeles.
Definitely not.
People don't understand that shit.
No, we are an incorporated city.
Yeah,
that has a very robust budget, very different than Los Angeles. But my point on this is, you know, I've said this numerous times, and I'm going to say it again, is that the reality is that when Americans are asked what are your top 5 issues that Congress needs to address, cannabis never tops those top 5 issues. And until it does, cannabis is going to be a back burner issue.
Yep. So we got to be vocal and be visible.
Boo.
If you care about this shit on either side, business, wellness, or lifestyle side, if you care about any of those, you care about like progressing it or making money off of it, be visible about it. Get out of the fucking green closet.
Amen. And there's so much complaining. Complain to the person who works for you and whose job it is to make that complaint go away. You know, fact is, these men and women are paid with our tax dollars. And if they're not doing a good job, we have to let them know that. I need to let them know what needs to keep them up at night. Okay, and not their own issues and not their own interests.
Period.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, got my blood going right there.
Oh, yeah. Activism, whacktivism, all of it. Yeah.
Nick Wildstar, can we get a comment from him? He actually went out there and ran for office.
Nick, do you have a comment on this? Can you hear us?
There we go. So as
Go
a
ahead,
candidate,
Nick. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
Ran on cannabis issues.
I just wanted to say you're absolutely right with regards to what it's going to take to push the needle here. 2 things: money and action. Pound the pavement, get in their faces, become that voting block to let them know this is an important issue. And if they don't yield to your demands, then their asses won't get the job. And to those elected officials that are in office, let them know that they aren't going to get your vote or your support, and start donating to the candidates that actually are out there advocating for cannabis reform, and let them know that they have your support. And I'm pretty sure you'll start to see a whole new conversation take place.
Without a doubt, Nick. Thank you so much for that insight. Very much appreciated. Rico, you got this next intro?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
All right.
We got next.
We have Dr. Mary Clifton.
She is a New York City-based 25-year board-certified medical doctor with Michigander roots and a widely respected expert in CBD. Here to close us out this beautiful, beautiful Thursday morning is Dr. Mary Clifton. What you got for us today?
Hi, everybody. I have great news that repeats great news we knew already. This is from Marijuana Moment, but of course it's going viral because it's about weight loss. Despite the munchies, marijuana legalization is tied to lower obesity rates, a stereotype busting study finds. This study was performed in Washington State, which opened adult use retailers in 2014, and used an analysis where they had the relationship between obesity and time and age and socioeconomic factors studied, analyzed, compared to what has actually happened in their state, thinking that because they legalized that they would end up with a whole bunch of people getting a lot of munchies and actually gaining a lot of weight. But the experiment showed that, quote, the opening of recreational marijuana dispensaries led to decreases in obesity rates relative to the constructed model. Specifically, the state's obesity rate is an average of 5.4% lower than what they would have expected it to be over the same frame of time. And and I was thinking maybe it's because people are cooking at home during the pandemic. And even though a lot of people gained a lot of weight during the pandemic because of all the anxiety and stress, a lot of people eating healthier food at home ended up losing a bit of weight. But all of the results were based on data up to 2018. It was the years between 2014 and 2018. This supports, more important insights into contemporary drug policy, providing a more robust understanding. Sorry about that. Providing a more robust understanding of how this product works with people's metabolism and how these behaviors could potentially decrease obesity across states. It could impact health economics and health policy more broadly. It's not clear exactly what's going on between marijuana legalization and obesity, but it's not the only study that's shown that cannabis is helpful with maintaining weight. A 2018 study concluded that consumers actually have slimmer waistlines compared to non-users, and another study that looked at a large population of people. Two separate population-based studies have shown that as people age, if they use cannabis over the decades, they maintain weights that are closer to their very healthy high school body weights. And I mean, it could be because cannabis has some impact on insulin and metabolism. It could be, something really hard to define, or it could just be that if you want to drink, you're going to have to drink 3 or 4 drinks after you've been drinking for if you're a regular drinker, you don't stop at 1 to 2 drinks to feel good. You end up drinking 3 or 4 drinks a night, and that's 400 or 500 calories. At the end of the week, that's a pound of calories, 3,500 calories going to your alcohol use. If you stop alcohol and use cannabis instead, that's literally a pound a week that you just shaved off of your calorie program by really doing nothing else. You haven't had to cut back on what you're eating or changed your activity level at all. But this article also points out that the whole idea of the amotivational cannabis syndrome, where people just lay around getting high, has also been proven untrue. That people that use cannabis regularly tend to enjoy exercise more and engage in exercise more. So here's to slimmer, happier, healthy America after we finally legalize this amazing plant.
Thank you so much for the story,
that was
Dr. Mary.
great. I'm excited. I'm excited to go smoke some weed so I can lose some weight.
It's crazy. People are like, oh, Rico, you're in shape. You're in shape. Like, nah, motherfucker, I haven't worked out in 2.5, almost 3 years. I just smoke weed.
I wonder if it's because
the comments are hilarious. Ever heard of a fat hippie?
I've seen plenty of fat hippies.
I've seen some.
I've seen plenty of fat
actually,
hippies.
That's true.
Yeah,
I've definitely seen some.
So
Rico,
you're just chubby though.
I don't work out. I just smoke weed.
Yeah. But seriously, if because people get the drunken munchies too, right? When you're drunk, you make really, really bad food decisions when you're drunk. So
also when you're fucking hella high, I mean, cannabis is only a gateway drug to the refrigerator.
Right,
It
that's what I'm
reduce
saying.
your inhibitions.
Yeah, but when
definitely.
you're drinking, opposed to when you're high, let's say you munch the same amount of food, you don't have all that sugar from all that alcohol you're drinking. You don't have like all those other calories, like Dr. Mary was saying. So, quit drinking and start smoking more.
Oh, shout out Stone Slade. He just pointed out Jerry Garcia as a fat hippie.
Oh
yeah,
that's the ultimate
yes, that's one
objection.
everyone can relate to right there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But no, I think this is great, Mary. I hope there's some kind of follow-up story later on, and they do some more studies on this, because I would really like to see some type of correlation between cannabis use and weight loss. I think that'd be amazing for the movement.
Yeah.
Not
What was
to
that
mention,
skinny weed shit? What was that?
That's what I'm saying.
Remember
Like, I think then we could call it weed light.
Yeah, that skinny weed was high in THCV, in the
THCV?
cannabinoid, and there's just been early studies that have shown that that's kind of one of the cannabinoids that could kill your appetite potentially.
I'll kill your appetite.
Not that I do.
Not kill you, kill your appetite.
I'm immortal.
Your appetite.
To clarify.
Another Purge reference.
It will only kill you if you're over the age of 75. So.
Oh man. That was a fantastic show, everyone. Thank you so much for that story, Dr. Mary. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and supporters, to the haters for still talking about us, and a huge thank you to True Classic, LAXCC, and Weavers for helping us keep the lights on. Thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing, and thank you to Cannabis for giving us a reason to do all this. Thank you to 3 is 4 and Zaza Simone for helping us create this space in this cannabis mini-verse. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us.
Thank you,
See you tomorrow. Thank you, Jason.
Guys.
Peace, guys.
Yeah, thank a stoner.
You are tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamite, and Nicole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.